Hi, I'm Zini Abraham. Today we're going to make a rose. Let me show you what you need for this project. You need a yogurt container. We're going to take and cut that into strips. You'll need scissors. You may need a piece of paper that you can trace around in the shape of a leaf. You're going to need some chalk pastels, although the project also works with paint. And last but not least, you'll need an inexpensive can of hairspray to set the chalk when we're done. Let's get started. Take a small yogurt container. Could be a bigger one too, but small works well for this project. You're going to just take a regular pair of scissors, and the hardest part is to get this rigid top part off, because that stuff doesn't bend the way we like it for this project, so we just trim around like this. These strips need to be about 1/4 of an inch wide, but you certainly don't need to do much to measure. Just give it an eyeball, and we're just going to trim all the way around like this. Now we want these different lengths, so if you're not cutting very straight or things get kind of wicked and weird, like my scissors aren't working all that well. Should have practiced this before we went live. And you just keep taking apart your yogurt container until you get it into a whole bunch of strips. Some containers will actually come apart into 2 different pieces. So you'll get double your money out of one container. I'm not quite sure how that works, but that's been my experience. So we'll take strips like this and like this, and what you do is you're going to want to cut them into different lengths. So this one was practically all the way around, and clearly I've cut this one to be a little bit shorter, and we want some that are just a little bit over 1 inch long. So if you can see that on the black paper, that's what those look like. So to get started with this, I like the black paper because we're going to be also using some chalk pastels today, and these are called soft pastels. Sometimes they say firm, but they are definitely more of a chalk than the oil pastels that we used in one of our earlier projects. So we take these little pieces that are about 1 inch or so to start with, and we're going to lay them, and we're going to think about how a rose starts like this and then unfurls. So we want to think about a circular pattern the whole time, and we're going to think about a bud at the beginning. So the bud is just a small circular pattern, and they're all kind of going to follow each other around. So as you work away from the middle, you're going to lay out the bigger pieces all the way around, and can you see how far I'm leaving? So this is at least a finger's width, if not 2 apart. And this is key because we're going to get that chalk in there, the soft pastel, and we're going to use it to trace these. So this is just going to give us a real simple little pattern that we can follow to create a rose. And you can see you don't need that many. Here there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, just about a dozen. One yogurt container should easily make you a rose. And we're recycling too, so it's super fun. You can keep these strips. I've had these. They've been used over and over and over again. So I just want to lay them out, and you can see it already kind of looks like a rose. So we're going to take a white piece of chalk, and I use the white just because it lays it down easy, and if you make a mistake, you can always just kind of scrub it off a little with your finger. So when we take the chalk, we're going to go inside and outside each of the pieces of yogurt container, and then we're going to get rid of it just to get it out of our way, because sometimes your chalk is going to bounce the piece of plastic right off the paper itself, and if you get it out of there, then it doesn't disrupt the ones that you are still needing to trace. And you can see this goes really quickly. And we just keep going all the way around, inside and outside. And you can tell that I'm not going right next to it to get in tight like this, and to worry if you've really made it exact isn't necessary at all. This is low stress and easy to manage. So just keep going inside and outside. The small ones in the middle get a little bit harder. Just do your best. And when you're done, already this looks something like a rose. Now, this is a little bit of the harder part. We're going to take our chalk and we're going to keep thinking about how each piece is kind of wrapped on the other one below it. So when we start in this middle, we just kind of do a little circular pattern. So the middle one kind of becomes a circle. Then each one after that is going to come down to the next level below it. And it's just going to, see how I'm making them attached to each other? They're just going to hit that bottom level and just keep doing it all the way around, working from the inside out. It looks best if they don't all, so this one is going to end over here, and this one, which would have been the same plastic, ends on this one. And that's kind of what we're after. We don't want them to all look like we traced that piece of plastic exact. We want to just keep working our way around until they've all hit the lower level, because they've fanned out from that middle bud. And there we have it. I think I've got it. All right, now you can color this all in solid. I don't think that's quite as fun or as meditative, and I haven't seen yet that it works as well. So what I like to do is I like to take these, and it gets kind of a mandala effect then, and it gets very relaxing to kind of trace each of the lines that you've already done with a color right up next to the line, but not over it. And it doesn't have to be exact or perfect in any way. You just kind of, and you can feel the chalk as it goes on the paper is very enjoyable. Now, one thing you got to be thinking about is how to keep your fingers off of the paper. So you want to establish an anchor in one spot, and if you need to, you can always turn the paper as you work all the way around so that you're not reaching over and smudging through, because you're basically drawing on a chalkboard at this point. And these do smudge, so you want to keep your hand up off of your project the best you can. Now, you don't have to do every single one with the color that you had in your hand. I can say this looks like it's a balanced amount of orange, and so I can switch to a different color. I do like to make sure that I have the color all throughout the rose though, so I want to make sure that I've got it on each of the sides, or mostly, and just keep working all the way around until you get as much color on as possible. And it's as enjoyable to listen to as it is to do. And I'm not really giving a whole lot of thought to which color I'm putting on next, because I've found that it doesn't matter that much. They always turn out pretty cool. You can also do this with paint. So if you have a large canvas, I think it looks great on the black, but you could do it on a bigger white canvas as well. You might want to use a larger container, like a larger sour cream or container such as that. That plastic holds the shape of the round so nice, which is why we like to use it. And that way it creates the petal for you all by itself. I have hosted children doing this with canvas, and they turned out really cool. And everybody's was just a little bit different, but cool enough that moms have hung them all up next to each other and made quite the display of roses on the wall. So that's kind of fun. So I think you get the idea. You just keep going around and around and around and changing your colors. And I like to cover up every little bit of black. And I can go in and do 2 lines after I get going, and they get all wonky. These are odd shapes in here, so you just kind of wing it. There is no right or wrong. You're just going to fill it in until all of the paper is completely full and the black isn't showing. So this is turning out to be a pretty one. I think we need some red though. So and you can leave it just like this if you want to, but I'd like a little bit of yellow, I think, to highlight. And I don't want all of that, let me find a nice yellow here, all that white showing. So I'm just going to hit this, and you can see how it just changes it. It just makes a nice highlight right around those colors. And you can leave the white there if you want to. I have found though that this would be the inside of the petal, so this is the outside, and this would be the part that's going into the bud. If I color this yellow, it will make your eye kind of, wonder what's going on. So you want to think about, now that we've created the outside of the petals, keep your highlights on the outside of the petal, and you can take your darker colors into the inside. So your darker colors would be a blue or a purple. And I'll show you, you can just take and add, sometimes that purple really makes the yellow stand out too. So you can just take and highlight those little bit, that would be the inside there by the bud, and give that just a little bit of purple highlight, low light rather. Alright, so we'll just add just a little bit more yellow around the edge. This project goes really quickly. Of course, I've done it several hundred times, so that makes it go a little bit faster for me. But it really is quite enjoyable, and there you don't need a tremendous amount of supplies to get it done. So if you can see here, I've got just a few finger marks from where my fingers were. So if I clean them up just a little bit, I can smudge those in really careful with another clean finger. So that gets that cleaned up. Now, prior to recording, I cut out a leaf shape. And you don't need the leaf shape, but a lot of people feel more comfortable having something to trace around. So often when I take this project to people, I bring the leaf along to make them feel more comfortable. And what I like to do is do an odd number of leaves and do more than just one in the corner. So this is just one, but then I'm going to look here and I think, this is a little bigger corner, and I'm just laying this across because we're thinking about how the leaves are coming from underneath the rose. And then I'm going to make this shift just a little bit, and you can see that I stop drawing when I get to the edge of the rose, because I don't want to draw the leaf up over the rose. And I like to have an odd number of groupings. So even though I've put 4 leaves on here, I think I'm just going to leave the 4 and show that there's just these 3 sides being represented with leaves. So you can color the leaves in any way that you want. I happen to think that just a cool little scribble here and there works pretty good. You've done all that cool line work to the rose. So then you can just highlight these edges and then come in, and the blue always makes such a nice little highlight with the colors that you have inside the, and you can see I'm just scribbling rather randomly. And we're just going to put a little more color on the leaves. You can use another color if you like. You could put a little bit of yellow highlight on here. But that is just about as simple as you can go. You want to get rid of the extra dust just by blowing. You might want to take it outside if you have a very clean environment. My studio space is not that kind of environment, because that's where I create art. And you can see I keep smudging it because my fingers aren't quite as clean as they should be. So once you've got the edge cleaned up just a little bit, you're going to want to set this. And the easiest way is just with a really inexpensive hairspray. That's just going to keep the dust on the paper instead of coming off. You're not going to want to use this for a placemat to put your dishes on. But if you hang this on the wall or cover it, and you just want to spray like this, and it darkens it just for a second, that's how you know you've got it covered. And then it's going to lighten right back up. So there you go. The rose. Thanks for joining us.